Good evening, everyone. I am one of the coordinators for the Bluefield Arts Festival, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight at our wonderful evening. We have a coach, we have an author, we have a songwriter, and an all-around entrepreneur, comic designer person going to talk to us today. I'm gonna ask that you stay on mute so there is no background noises. I'm going to ask that you put your questions in the chat, and you can even put who you are in the chat. So we know who's here tonight. And I'm going to start with our wonderful coach, Naomi Vladeck, and let her take the stage.
All right. Thanks, Deb. I'm really grateful to be invited to another one of your creations and to the rest of the team at Bluefield Arts. And also nice to meet Michael, Betsy, and Alice. Hey, so I'm Naomi Vladeck. I am a transformational life coach and I work strictly with artists, creators, and creative leaders to basically ignite your courage to create the future that you want to experience. Today I was just a little, I wasn't doom scrolling, but I was scrolling for a moment and I saw a clip of Sharon Stone at the Astra Awards. And she was saying that when she auditioned for Basic Instinct, she had to really go for it. She did all sorts of things that are maybe not approved by, her peers, but she went in and she did all the things she needed to do to get that audition and to nail it. And she said, when you want something as an artist, you should go and get it. You should go and get it. That would be nice if we could all just go and get it, right? I love that energy, and it had a lot of energy in it. But we all have stories that get in the way of our courage, invisible forces that shape our beliefs and our assumptions and can influence our behavior and the stories that we live out in ways we haven't even consciously chosen. And we can really get stuck in those stories. I wrote a book called Braving Creativity, which was really inspired by the death of my husband 10 years ago. And when he died, the story that I held tight to crumbled before my eyes. I grew up with the story that I wasn't the brave one in my life, that courage was for other people, but not me. And I was stuck inside a story in ways that were utterly confounding and inconsistent with how I lived my life up until that point. But I held tight to that story for a long time. How could I believe something about myself so obviously preposterous based on the facts of my life up until that point? I realized after he died that I was the brave one all along in my life. I am not the brave one is a declaration that we repeat. We actually practice these declarations for decades. Many of these declarations are like beliefs that are, uh, unconsciously operating based on old assumptions and conditioned tendencies from our family systems. We become what we practice, and we're always practicing something. But what I ask my artists and the people I work with is what you're practicing aligned with what you care about. A fun fact is that it takes about 300 repetitions to change your behavior and about 3,000 repetitions to embody a new response to a stimulus under stress. So as you're growing up, you're repeating the same thoughts over and over and over again. If you're going to unwind them in order to take risks to grow bigger than these hidden fears, you have to practice and you have to call those declarations into conscious awareness. A declaration could be, I will never feel like that again. I will survive no matter what they do to me. No daughter of mine will talk that way or act that way. Don't rock the boat. Some of you know Rollo May, the author of Courage to Create. It was really kind of invigorating for me to read his book for the first time and understand that courage is not a global phenomenon. It's specific. In other words, I believed that I was either courageous or not courageous. And in fact, we don't have courage in general. We practice courage in particular places. So if you have courage in relationships, you may also be able to transfer that courage into emotional courage, creative courage, adventure courage, moral courage. And that was really helpful for me to realize I wasn't all one thing, that in fact I was courageous and it showed up for me in different ways. Since my husband's died, I've made new declarations. For instance, I work a lot with commitments with my clients. I am committed to creating honest, authentic connections so that I can express myself without fear of rejection or separation. So, declarations are conscious commitments to a new story for our life, one that's true for us today and stretches into the realm of who you are going to become, who you long to become. And I work with my clients to think about what they care about most, what they value, what are they going to stand for in the future. And you have to start by connecting to what matters most. You don't start by taking giant leaps into the unknown. You start with just identifying, what do I care about now? What do I want to stand for? So my invitation to folks who are listening, since this is an enrichment session, is to ask yourself the questions: what declarations have I made that have become the story of who I am up until this point? And just take a minute to consider that. What declarations, what stories have I assumed were true and grew me up that have become the story of who I am up until now? And then, what declaration, if made, would catalyze a huge breakthrough in your work or life? What declaration, if you made, would catalyze a huge breakthrough in your work or life? Practice it. Practice saying, using the language to iterate a new story and see how it lands with you. And that's the work I do with my clients. We always start with, what do we care about? And then we put the goals and actions into that so that we can identify the impact we want to make. This is how we grow bigger than our fear. And as a coach who coaches artists, I'm not coaching artists how to create their work. I'm coaching them how to step into the power of purpose that their longing holds. Because inside of all of us are these adult women who are showing up in big, courageous ways for our lives, in our lives and other people. Can we do that for ourselves? And can we declare it, stand for it in a way that is utterly undeniable? You can't deny it. So definitely open to questions about what coaching is and this process of declarations. And I'm grateful for all of you. So have a big declarative 2026, everybody. Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome. Do we have any questions for Naomi? Perhaps, Naomi, you can put in the chat if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how they can go about doing that.
Thank
That
you.
would be
Yes.
great. So I'm sure Naomi's presentation has given us lots and lots to think about. And anybody
Yeah,
want to share
I
a
can help you.
declaration
Yeah, if
in
anybody wants to share a
in
declaration
the
or like
chat?
a
I can
belief that you
certainly
grew up
read
with that
them.
said, yeah, I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I don't have the power in relationship, those types of things that have really gotten in the way or maybe are in the way now. Um,
And I promise not to say who's saying them. Yeah, this is just, you know,
yeah,
I think we have similar declarations. So,
yeah, yep, yep. And it's like at this time in my life, I'm coming up against like even more hidden beliefs. So I noticed that I still have an edge around certain kinds of risks, and the belief under there is still in a shadow, and it's something I'm working with. But until you can really reveal these things, um, can you see how they aren't true for you anymore, or they aren't as true as what you're living and longing for today. And change is a creative process, just like any creative process. You face the unknown, you collaborate, you play, you investigate, you bring your curiosity, you fail, and you allow what wants to emerge, just like any creative process.
So Mike raised his hand. If you want to say something, Mike, you can unmute
Where
yourself.
did Mike
And
go? Oh, hey, Mike.
then I have uh, a declaration to read or a question to read. Go ahead,
Yeah, no,
Mike.
I think Naomi, everything you said is fantastic, and I think how it relates to artists, as I think, we all are, aspiring or working or whatever the case might be. I always have a saying: is my have to greater than my want to? And my want to is, well, I want to do this. I want to be able to put out a comic book. I want to draw more. I want to do this, versus, well, I have to, and if I don't, something something worse will happen to me, and I don't mean physically, but or mentally. Just it's that desire to put your stuff out there, because I have to do this, and if I don't do this, I'm not complete. I'm not going to feel complete. I'm not going to feel fulfilled. So that's actually, it's funny, and I'll talk about it a little bit later too. And that's something I was going to mention was, is my have to greater than my want to? Because if my have to is, it gets done. If it's my want to, it doesn't.
Good,
Yeah, I
good
love that.
point. I have one comment here, and it says, and I so agree with this. As artists, one of the biggest obstacles is gaining the confidence to believe that others will like our work. You want to address that?
Yeah. Right. So there's a belief, like the gaining the confidence to believe that others will like our work. Yeah. So that process, that's a journey there because the belief is so you're good, you're trying to you identify what is the belief that my work is not likable, and then try to understand where the root of that is. Like, how did that ever come to pass? That what and is there a deeper belief in there? It's kind of like ferret out what is the belief that creates some resistance, because presumably if it's an obstacle, it's creating some resistance. I'm avoiding getting gigs. I'm not showing my work publicly. I am not participating in critiques. I'm not getting involved because I have a belief that people won't like my work. My work is not likable. Could go deeper if you follow that. So the antidote is not to make work that other people like, or even to believe that other people like your work, although that is something you can play with. It might be something else that's true too. It could be in the realm of like, I am a fearless creator and I accept failure and iteration as part of my process. You're really getting into the detail of what matters to you. Does it matter to you that others like your work? Who are these others? So really getting into it, like what is the slippery, like, work of resistance makes this sentence um not trustworthy. And so that's part of what we get into when we hear that kind of thing. I hope that's helpful. It's a lot.
That that is one more comment, and it has to do with prioritizing. How do
Yeah.
you prioritize your art with your home and life
Oh,
responsibilities?
yes. That is the perennial question. So, one of the ways is to really, this is great when it comes to declarations because most of the time, women in particular, but of course, men have this too in family systems, is that we don't actually let people know what matters to us and what we're up to. We're not actually declaring, hey, something's changing over here. I'm about to like be in the studio longer because I want to create this body of work. And it means that you're gonna have to find your own dinner, or it means that I can't take you to hockey practice, or it means the leaves are gonna stay on the lawn because I have to be in this focused space. So I think Mike was pointing to it in some way before, but when we when we talk about change, when we're changing things up, we also have to look at what we can, our relationship to threat, because the the deeply ingrained reactivity we have on which resistance feeds is a response to real or perceived or imagined threat from the way back, usually, or from a real traumatic experience. So I might be afraid of rejection. I may be afraid of being shamed. I may be afraid of abandonment because I say I want something. Because the part of our brain that is reacting unconsciously and growing us up in all these ways is programmed when we first experience life, and then it goes on autopilot. That part of our brain, the amygdala, doesn't know time, which is so crazy. So that's why it's so confusing to us sometimes when we know we want something and we're not doing it. We desire it with all our heart and we can't take that first step. What is going on? So we can't underemphasize the power of resistance because it is linked to our most primary, relational experiences. Yes.
Beautiful. And on that note, if we have time, we'll go back and see if there's any other questions for you, Naomi. I'm now going to turn it over to our amazing songwriter, Alice Leon.
Oh, I'm unmuted.
Yay.
Zoom, right?
Yes, you're good.
Yay. Well, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. I've been writing songs for as long as I could remember. Music has just always been a huge force in my life. My I'm a first generation. My grandmother had been a pianist in Europe, and during World War II, she came over with my dad and my uncle, and she never played piano again. She learned how to type to be able to support her family, but she introduced me to music like Peter and the Wolf, and I really understood the songwriting aspect of it. And the thing that blew my mind was that every song that I'd ever heard in my entire life, whether it was, classical, jazz, pop, rock, whatever it was, on TV, soundtracks, it had all been written by a songwriter. And I said, I want to be in that club because that's the coolest club I could think of. And so I just started writing. Writing for me as a kid was just, maybe writing a song about how much my brother was annoying me and setting it to music. But I learned how to play instruments. I learned pretty much self-taught guitar, piano, ukulele, anything you could imagine. I was very influenced by some of the great songwriters like the Beatles, Carole King, Peggy Lee, on and on and on. So I didn't think I could sing, though. I always wanted to just be a songwriter. And I found my voice a bit later. I was very shy. I was never the first. I was never in on any plays. Would never sing in the chorus. None of that. Really I found my voice when I was after 18. So songwriting's just been part of what I do. And I've written about 5 albums. I was signed to a development deal with Sony Records, and I got to work with some of the greatest engineers and producers anywhere. I've gotten an opportunity with my music to be able to be on the big stages. And I've also been able to mentor many people with songwriting. So I do a lot of programming in the schools right here in Clarkstown. I teach songwriting and I make music videos to support curriculum. I've also been the music teacher at Daytop, which is a high school for recovery for teens, and really helping them find their voice through songwriting. And songwriting is just really three big elements, right? So it's going to be lyrics, the words, a melody, and a rhythm. And then, of course, the instrumental stuff comes later. It just comes with an idea. And I've also found that for me, songwriting has given me this great opportunity to give a lot of myself and find joy and give joy to others. So I've written over 800 songs for kids in hospitals throughout the world. So the families with kids that are really very sick, some of them, really at the end, would send a little sheet about telling me about their children, and then in the style of music, and then I would write and record those songs and send them out, and that's been very good for me as well. And I'm also a performing musician. Right now I'm a songwriter who makes my living singing other people's music, but in that I learn and I interpret. So I just literally flew home last night. I'm on tour with a group called the Three American Troubadours. We're all over the country. We're playing very large 1,000, 1,500 seat venues, and I am playing Carole King. This is real. This is what I was born with. And I'm actually I have a Carole King show that I'm doing locally in the area. And I'm also talk a little bit about songwriting through her music. And I also work, I have a Peggy Lee show as well. A lot of people don't realize that this woman from the 40s, 50s, and 60s was a phenomenal trailblazer and songwriter. I guess that's pretty much it. That's me, and I'd love to answer any questions. I wanted to answer this question that it said, like, the inner saboteur of like not completing something or getting it out. Luckily for me, that's not been a problem. I just complete it. I'm not saying much of what I've written is not necessarily wonderful, but I do complete it. And I always find the time, because there always is time to do the work you want to do. I'm not doing it for others per se. I'm doing it for myself. And if I love my work and I'm proud of it, it's a lot easier to present it, whether it's live or I've put out 6 albums, which are on iTunes and all the places that you get them. So that's it. So if you have any questions, do you prefer writing alone or collaborating? I love doing both. I really do love to collaborate, though. Collaborating really opens up ideas. Like in many of my albums, I'm under the moniker The Alice Project. I co-wrote with a guitarist named Jimmy Leahy, who's a phenomenal guitarist, and he would create the music behind it. So basically the arrangements, and then I would write the melodies and the lyrics, and I had complete carte blanche to do that. In other cases, I've worked with a woman named Erin O'Ree, fabulous vocalist, who writes lyrics. She sent them over to me, and then I create the melodies and the arrangements. So that really expands, where I am going creatively. But I also love to write my own stuff. And I'm always writing, whether it's wherever I am. I always have a pad and a piece of paper, and or I'm kind of talking into my phone. So yeah, I'm always writing. And let's see, is there any other questions?
I have a question. Is there something in particular that inspires you, or does that change with your mood or change with, what's going on with your life?
It's funny. I have written, literally thousands of songs. I've written songs about being stuck in traffic. Am I, with the chorus saying, am I the only one that has to get there? I've written songs about, somebody breaking my heart, and I called it Puke. And it was my way of sort of saying, the thought that I could put my life in limb and wrap it all for you is really making me want to puke. I mean, you just write about what you feel. So yeah, whatever inspires me, I'm writing about. I wrote a song. It was actually, everyone is stuck in right now, the whole band. There was 12 of us traveling. I got home last night, but there's still 9 of them that are still stuck in Florida trying to get home. And they were, everybody was pretty upset. And I had written a song about that, talking about, kind of making the best out of a terrible situation. So every situation that presents itself can be a song.
Do you have any recommendations for people that are just starting out or would love to be in your?
Well, do stay away from AI. It's baloney, and it is a Franken way of, like, they steal from everybody else's work. I say sit down, write your ideas down, don't pre-edit. Figure out when you're writing a song, so what am I writing about? Is it a happy song? If it's a happy song, it's going to have major happy chords. Maybe it's going to have a great beat to it. Maybe it's going to be an island beat. Maybe it's, or if I'm writing something that's really very personal and sad and slow, maybe I want something that is a bit slower, maybe using some minor keys. But, you want to convey your ideas through the music, and you think about how you want it to sound, and then you write it. There's no right or wrong. That's
Can you offer tips for somebody who has a collection of songs and would like to get it published or would like to get it to Sony Records?
Well, that ship has sailed.
Okay.
So there's no more selling your records or CDs. It really isn't that. If you want to sell anything, you got to sell a t-shirt or a mug. The big corporations, Amazon and iTunes, they've taken that away. However, the internet is a great platform. You can create songs. Lisa D'Amico knows that during the pandemic, my husband and I would be down here in the studio, and we would just get titles, and we would co-write with anybody that wanted to write with us. And we had titles like, "At least the gun shops and the liquor stores are open. What could go wrong?" Write these songs. Are you asking me what's my advice?
Yeah. To if nowadays.
My advice is write your songs. If you have a way of like, you can sing this stuff and put it on, get yourself a nice page on Instagram or Facebook. I do it all the time. I'll do a new song and I'll get maybe 1,500, 2,000, sometimes more, of people that will listen to it and offer their comments or say, you know what, that song brightened my day. That's really what it's about now. If you want to be able to sing out, there's open mics, there's plenty of opportunities to go out there and play your music. I mean, even when I play locally, I'll always throw some of my music out there along with whatever people are requesting. So it's a different business now. I think the way to get really seen is probably getting a good page on a social media platform and really try to grow your audience that way.
Perfect. I'm gonna check the chat. Do you see any other questions in the chat?
Which of your songs means the most to you and why?
Ooh.
Many of them mean a lot to me. I definitely do like the work that I've done because it's based on so many different parts of my life. I've been literally writing music for over 50 years. I mean, my whole life. So, right now I've been writing a lot about love and kindness, being kind to each other. And I guess the song that I'll be putting on Facebook, maybe tonight, is called "Love and Kindness Goes a Long Way." So I've been really trying to use my joy and try to bring this very important human thing that we do as creators, and share that so that maybe we can all take a moment to remember what's important. So that's the way I've been using my art.
That's great. Are there any other questions or comments?
All right, peace. Oh, did I ever feel discouraged? I guess when you say discouraged, um, I've worked with people that turned out that they, were people that thought they were going to do something wonderful for me through the years, and I've thought that they would really follow through, and they have. And I guess I've been disappointed by people, but never discouraged from the art itself. That's always been important, and it's been there. And as I believe Michael said, it's always been a question. I need to write. For me, that's part of like breathing, whether or going to the gym. I need to write. My next gig in Rockland County, New York. Well, actually, I'm going to be with Betsy. I'm doing my yay. I'm doing my Carole King tribute over at the Roost in Spark Hill. We sold out 2 shows on the 18th of March, and we're going to be there on the 19th. And I believe there's some tickets left. So the Roost in Spark Hill on the 19th of March. And you can also see me around the local clubs. I'll just put my right here. I don't even know how to do it. This is my website. And I do put in where I'm going to be. AliceLeon.com. There it is. And then, did it say Alice Leon? Yeah. Anyway, that's how you can find me and where I'll be locally. I'm actually going to be playing Tarrytown Town Hall, Peekskill. I'm going to be playing some of the bigger places around here with Taylor Simon King. And I've just booked a big theater in Long Island with my Carole King show in, I think, in July. So, yeah, you can see me lots of places. And I play at Rick's Club American, taking all your requests.
Thank you so much. Your passion for what you do and your belief in the joy that it brings absolutely shows through. I so appreciate your time. And many years ago, you were part of the Rockland Arts Festival, and you sang with your husband, and I thoroughly enjoyed that show. So I can highly recommend you finding Alice and where she's showing and go see her. And
Songwriters that are tuned in, or you ever want to just reach out to me directly. I really love to help mentor and anything that I can give to you to keep writing and creating a masterpiece. I'd love to be part of that. So
perfect. Thank you. And now we have our author, a wonderful, wonderful author whose name is Betsy Franco Feeney. I would love to have you unmute and tell us all about you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Debbie. And I'm going to put a plug in for Alice's show. The reason why I say that I'm working with Alice, and Alice says she's working with me, is one of my day jobs is working at Roost Restaurant and Union Arts Center. And we've booked Alice for, as she said, March 18th and March 19th. I will put in the chat after I'm done, I'll put in the chat a link so you can purchase tickets to her show doing a tribute to Carole King. I've seen her do it already, and she's amazing. And we don't have that many tickets left, actually. So all right. So I've been freelance pretty much my whole career. I graduated from FIT in New York City as an illustration major. So as I am an author illustrator at this point, but my focus was always on illustration for many years. And after school, I also took classes at School of Visual Arts. So my focus all the time was actually to be a children's book illustrator. And so after going to FIT, which was a fashion illustration school, I honed my skill to do both children's book illustration and also graphic design, because let's face it, there's not a lot of money especially at first, becoming an author or an author illustrator of children's books. And really, I think pretty much many authors will say the same, even if you're not doing children's books. So you usually do have to have a day job, at least at first. So then after what my day job was graphic design. So while I was doing graphic design, which at the time was paste up and mechanicals, which was before computers. And what I did was I found an art rep, and the art rep actually brought my portfolio of children's books, illustrations, to New York City, to a publishing house. So at that time, way back when, that was the only way you were going to get published. Either as an author or an illustrator, you had to use a big publisher. I'm talking, all right, I'm talking 40 years ago when I started in children's books, in books. So I have published with large publishing houses, packagers, which are places that you might find not a trade book. A trade book would be you'll find in libraries and bookstores. Mass market books would be found in like a supermarket or or a pharmacy or something like that. So I've done all that kind of publishing with many different publishers. Then, as Naomi was saying, I went for it. I kind of got tired of illustrating other people's work. So I said to myself, I decided to dream big. And my dream was, I wish I could decide what to illustrate, because you always have to, 9 times out of 10, or even more than that, a book starts with the words. And so I didn't feel I was a writer. I wasn't a writer at the time. So I was a big fan of this woman. Her name is Christine Lavin, who writes very clever folk songs and relationship songs. And she had one song named Amoeba Hop, and I just loved it. And so my dream was, I wish I could, just connect with her and illustrate that story. And so at least I'd have some control. I reached out to her, and when she reached back, and this was in the beginning of computers and being able to see each other's websites and all that, I was like floored. And she was so open, and that was our first book together. I illustrated it, and I also worked with scientists. Because the song Amoeba Hop, as you might gather from that, is about tiny little creatures, and it's really with Christine's amazing imagination, is about what goes on in a puddle of water, and how the lonely paramecium found a partner for the amoeba hop dance party through binary fission. So it's super, super creative, just imaginative. But it's based on real science. If you hear her song, hear the lyrics, there's really a lot of scientific terms. So we actually worked with scientists to get all the illustrations right. I worked with scientists, and when they said, no, it doesn't quite look like that, and I changed my illustrations, although they're very, very fanciful. I gave them eyes and mouths and everything. So after having them as they were our consultants, I wrote the back of the book. I wrote an appendix in the back of the book. So I kind of co-authored that. And we actually won an award for a Best Books Award for the American Association for the Advancement of Science for that book, Amoeba Hop. Now, that book, though, was so hard to publish. Even though I had published 6 other books, I thought I could do it. But at that point, I was not with my art rep anymore, because we kind of parted ways, because it was the time when computer graphics, computer art was coming up, and all of us traditional illustrators felt threatened my art rep, whose husband was her chief artist, her number one artist, they said to me, "Oh, don't do anything with people who want to buy your art and make it clip art to be on the computer for people to buy." You know, she was so anti-computer. Meanwhile, I'm looking around and saying, that's the way things are going. You know, if I don't jump on board, I think I'm going to be left behind. I think I'm going to be a dinosaur. And so I made the decision to part with her, to go it alone, to learn the computer, everything I could. And at the same time, that's when we had this book that we were trying to market, Christine and I. Okay, so because we had 3 strikes against us. First of all, we were collaborators. If you want to publish a book, and let's say, because like that, my field is children's book illustration, and you're only a writer or only an illustrator, you submit only the writing or only the illustrating, whatever's yours, and don't bring somebody else in on it, because that could hurt your chances, because they may love your work and not like the illustrations. It'll reflect badly on that, and vice versa. So publishing houses, they like to put you together with someone. And then also ours was about a song. So that was another thing against us. It was a song, it was a science book, it was fanciful, it was real science. So we had problems trying to get somebody to pick it up. That's when I created Puddle Jump Press, my own publishing company. And because I knew how to do it, I had the graphic skills, because I got to do computer graphics. I grabbed onto it, I loved it, and I actually did the illustrations and the setting up of it and everything. That was 20 years ago now. Because at that time, it was just coming out that people started doing more and more on their own. But it wasn't the point of print on demand. That's nowadays. And I actually have published 3 books in that way, because once I could do the books on my own, I don't even try and get a large publisher. Like Alice was saying, you know, that ship has sailed. You could possibly get it. I saw a statistic. It's like hundreds of thousands of books, and then one person will get the contract. You know, 100,000 people are going for a contract. It's just the minuscule percentage that do get the contract from a large publisher. And then once you get it, it's all up to you, unless you are a movie star, to do all the marketing to push it yourself. But all of this is part of what I do when I have a PowerPoint and I do presentations on the pros and cons of traditional illustration versus traditional publishing versus indie publishing. What's good and bad about the two, let me tell you now. Print on demand has made it so easy. But there are so many ways to come up with a really bad book. So one of the things you got to watch is you've got to, if you're a writer, you've got to get an editor, even though you think you're like the best writer in the world. You've got to do things to polish your independently published book. That's really, really key. So I have PowerPoints for that. And if you wanted to email me, I could send you a copy of the PowerPoint. I could also, if anybody has any questions as far as how the traditional publishing or how print on demand goes now, I'll answer those questions. And also, you know, if we have time, I could show some of I have a PowerPoint, so show a few of the illustrations or and I've delved into a little bit of AI, which is something I'm like Alice, I don't like it, but here's what I'll say about AI. People were very against computers when they came in versus traditional painting art. What's happened? It's come into our lives. It has changed things, but if it's in the hands of a real artist, you can produce amazing stuff. And I've used it, another tool in my toolbox. I paint with it sometimes. That's basically the way I use it. I paint in Photoshop, but I draw by hand and I scan it in. So I use it in a combination ways. Now with AI, I've been reading, I've been hearing a lot that it's kind of like the same thing, but it's very, very powerful. But in the long run, it's the artists who embrace it and use it in a way to spark their creativity and to enhance their creativity. Those are the ones that will continue. And the ones who are true artists are going to be the best at it. So it's coming. It's coming. It's still at a point where we can still get jobs as creative artists. But it's coming. It's coming. So that's basically, let's see. If anybody has any questions. Growing up, what was my favorite childhood book? To tell you the truth, when I was young, I was one of six. And my mom and dad, I don't remember cozying up to my mom and dad and having them read us books. It was more like, okay, get to bed, stop jumping on the bed. It's like, it's time to stop. They had six kids. But we did have one, Wink and Blink and Nod. And I do remember that book very fondly. But it wasn't, but I just wanted to illustrate books from when I was in school. I just started illustrating, painting on the windows of the classroom and everything. So I just always wanted to be an artist. And one of my latest books, I'm finally the author and illustrator of one of my latest books called Jewels of the Sea, The Hunt for Floating Treasure. And I go to the schools, Alice was saying, I go to the schools, I do presentations at the schools. And this is a way for authors and illustrators to make some money and to sell more books. One of the chief ways, the main way I sell books at this point is when I go to the schools and they'll send a flyer home to the parents to say, an author's coming, an illustrator's coming. Would you like to purchase this book? They'll autograph it. And so I'll sell a lot of books that way. And also they will pay an author and illustrator for a school visit. They have cultural arts programs. And the best part of that for me at this point is I have inspired, and I know this, I've inspired children to become, I have proof of one for sure, but I know I've inspired others to grow up and become scientists, because I was saying I've been doing I did Amoeba Hop 20 years ago when I created Puddle Gem Press. So I had this great photo that a teacher took of me in the classroom after what I did, because when I go to the schools, I dress up as the little girl character in the book. I have an umbrella. And so the teacher took a picture of me with all the kids around me under the umbrella, and everybody's so happy. And so I posted it recently on LinkedIn, and I said this was one of my favorite visits in Fair Lawn, New Jersey in 2005, and a comment came through. That was my daughter's favorite day in school. I think it is why she is a scientist now. And she highlighted her name, and I looked at her LinkedIn profile. She is a scientist. It's like, oh my God. So that's why I do what I do. It's very fulfilling. It's all part of being a creative. And like Alice said, when we can give back, it's wonderful. So let's see, are there other, when growing up, do you help publish traditional writers at Puddle Jump Press? I have in the past. But at this point, I cannot, because of my other work, I don't publish anybody else. I have in the past some in my critique group. A critique group is a very, very important thing to do, is to get with other people and help each other, so that you're not working in a
So will you
vacuum.
do me a huge favor? Will you put in the chat, how to reach you, the critique book, anything that you think that people who are authors or illustrators might benefit from in order to get
Okay.
your PowerPoint and things like that.
Okay.
Thank you so very much. And
You're
now, last but definitely not least, I'd like to invite Michael Dolce to share some time with us.
Thank you so much. Never. It's actually a lot more pressure to go last, right? I have to wrap this up. And Alice can attest to this too, because I was in bands too. My bandmate always said it doesn't matter how you play for the entire show, as long as you nail the last song. That's all people are going to remember anyway. So it works out pretty good. Hi, my name is Mike Dolce. I am a writer, artist, web developer, publisher, entrepreneur. I do a whole lot of stuff, and I do it all for myself, which is actually probably the most rewarding thing. On my Substack page recently and my Facebook page and all that stuff, I actually posted my LinkedIn that it was 10 years ago in December that I actually put my 2 weeks notice in to my last job, and I haven't had a boss since then. And it's been 10 years going strong. And I'll give you a little history. I went to New Paltz, SUNY New Paltz, very, very long time ago. Unfortunately, now it's been 25 years ago that I graduated, which is crazy to say, but it is the case. I was a creative writing minor. I was a visual arts major, and I wanted to write and draw comic books. And that's what I've always wanted to do, and that's what I've aspired to do. Getting out of college, so it's actually, Betsy, you had such a great talk about the trends and what's going on. I actually took the web design class in college. So there was one web design class. Websites were just kind of starting. I remember being in high school, and two guys came in for their physics senior project and said, we built a website for our physics class. And I said to the guy next to me, I go, what the hell is a website? And ironically, 25 years later, well, actually more now, but no, 25 years later, websites is one of the ways that I make a living. It's fun. I enjoy web design. I'm not going to really dwell too much on it, but I enjoy it because I'm an impatient person. It's actually the most gratifying way to create something that looks great. I like the math part of it too. I have a math brain as well too, so it kind of satisfies, that kind of stuff. But I love the fact that I can create something instantly, hit publish, and it's there and it's out and it's live. That's kind of a cool thing. So I worked for a magazine in Congress. It was called Wizard Magazine. It was the magazine for comic books. So I spent a lot of my formative years there. That business imploded, much to what Betsy had mentioned, just did not kind of see the internet coming, and a print magazine with some management issues definitely were going to have issues. And so I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I took my web design background. I moved to an IT company. But at the same time, I had gotten my foot into the publishing world of comic books. I was published in 2009 by one of the top tier publishing companies that are not Marvel and DC. There's a company called Image Comics. You have seen an Image Comics property, be it Spawn. There was a movie called Spawn. There was an HBO series called Spawn. I'm sure a lot of folks are familiar with The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead started out as a comic book that was Image Comics. So I was being published by them. I was climbing the ladder. I had gotten my first comic book freelancing gig in 2008 for writing, which was awesome. Everything seemed to be going great until 2010, where my editor got fired and my wing of Image Comics, the publisher, decided, I'm getting old. I'm done with this. So my editor actually got let go. And everything I had kind of built up toward at that point had hit a brick wall, so to speak. fast forward 2 years later, I'm still working for that IT company. I haven't had anything published in 2 years. And I remember coming home to my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. And I said, today is like the worst day of my life. I took a training course today on how to sell more websites for a company I don't want to be working for. And it kind of brings together I think everything what we've been talking about. And something I mentioned, earlier, it's my want to versus my have to. And I had to get out. I mean, I had to get out. It's a scary prospect. This is back, post 2008 crash as well too. The company I was with wasn't doing great, and I literally sat around thinking to myself, what am I actually qualified for at this point? What could I actually do? I want to write and draw comics. My entire network is dried up. I don't want to go back to self-publishing. I had done self-publishing for a few years to break in, which is a great, that's a great way to. At the time, it was a great way to break in, just to show proof of concept. It's not what self-publishing was now, which I'll get into as well. And I kind of faced a crossroads. And at that point, I started saying, you know what? I am going to take these skills that I learned. I joined an organization called BNI. It was a business networking initiative. All I got was this lousy coffee mug. But it was great because it was a networking group, and it introduced me to a bunch of businesses. And within the first year, I brought in a certain amount of business. By the second year, I brought in what I was making basically at this company. I brought in and I was executing this business. And then so by year 3, I said, I should just do this myself. But I'm not just doing it for myself just to do websites. I need to take control of my life again. And that's really what it was and what it amounted into. I left in 2015. I started my own web design company with the intent of let me at least control the time that I have so that I can, if I want to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, if I want to work at 8 o'clock at night, I can do that. I already know I can. I've done this enough times for somebody else. Let me do it for myself. It's a big risk. It's a big leap, but it paid off ultimately. I started my own radio show and podcast in 2016, back before everyone else had a podcast. I ended up using that podcast to network with all my network that had dried up. So I ended up getting more freelance writing gigs back in the comic book world again. I started getting on people's radar again, which was huge. And then the podcast itself became its own business, which I sold to a company out in LA in 2020, right before I signed the papers, right before COVID. It was kind of funny. Since then, I've actually just done a little bit of live streaming, but in the process of doing the podcast and getting back into it, a friend of mine from college, we had been doing Comic Cons for a long time, said to me, hey, let's do a publishing company together because we're putting stuff out. Kickstarter became a huge thing in the industry. So again, Betsy, everything you talked about, in terms of getting onto that next wave of things, was huge. Self-publishing became huge. Again, it's really funny. My first self-published comic book was in 2006, and back then it was seen as, oh, that's cute, that's great, that's a nice, oh, you can do this, okay, you've managed to do a comic book, you've managed to do a comic book series. Now self-publishing is an absolute avenue you can do. I formed a company called Dren Productions. My studio is called Sire Studios. I'll put some links in the chat. We are a full-fledged publishing company. We now have licenses with Smokey Bear, Smokey the Bear. So I got to draw a cover. It's actually under this paper. I should have prepared better. The cover's sitting underneath there. Got to draw a cover for Smokey the Bear. Started drawing again. I've published about 40 different comic books now at this point. The slate that we have this year is, at least 12 more. This year is probably the most I've ever published that I've had a direct hand in. I actually have a Kickstarter out right now. I literally launched it today for a project that I am super excited about. It's called Ones and Zeros. It's what if AI wasn't created by human beings at all, but crash landed here at Roswell in 1947? And was this an accidental crash, or were the aliens trying to either save us or destroy us? So it's my way of putting AI in the backdrop of a cool futuristic sci-fi tale. And I'm trying to squeeze as much as I can. 10 minutes is not a lot of time. I think everyone can kind of realize that. So I just before I go, I'll just give you a quick pivot. It's again, everything I'm doing now that the ball is rolling, the snowball is rolling. Signed with an agent in June of last year. We've actually we've been, we're nationally distributed. All our books are nationally distributed. That's a whole other story too. I invite you to check out my Substack as well too. I'll put that in there because I talk about last year was a crazy year, but also a really fulfilling year where our distribution company went under. We ended up getting, having to scramble to find other distribution. We're currently we're currently with a new distributor, but it actually, created an instance where we were inundated with stores across the country that had been buying our stuff over the last 5 years, and we're saying, where can we get it? Where can we get it? So it's been a gratifying, albeit very tough year, and it was all funded by my web design company. So it's all everything that I have to do is based on stuff that I choose to do, and my have to has never been greater, thanks to the troubles that we went through last year, because at the end of the year I sat there saying, boy, we have 2 new video game properties we're going to sign a license for. We need money for that. I'm like, boy, we lost about $10,000 last year just with the distributor, just on sales that didn't end up, we couldn't fulfill because the distributor went out of business. And it was like, boy, I need more money. Let me get more projects. Let me do more Kickstarters. Let me do more art. And it's been as you can tell from my voice, I'm a little sick. I'm a little, I got a little cold, but that's from burning the candles, they say. So
You would sound like somebody who dreams big in
yeah,
lots of different places. You
yeah,
certainly declared that.
yeah.
Will you check the chat and see if there's any questions that you would like to answer while we have a couple of more minutes?
I mean, I don't know if there's anything while I was talking. Oh, are there any specific ways to enhance creativity? Um, what are some triggers? I got to be honest with you, desperation will enhance creativity. I'm not gonna lie. So last year, my web design company is pretty turnkey at this point, and that's a good thing, right? But it can build complacency in. So you sit there and go, well, yeah, I want to put another project out, but I don't really need the money right now. I have money coming in, so that's not a big deal. But at the end, my partner and I, we were really servicing a lot of the debt that we were incurring by lost sales that we picked up, plus expansion that we were doing at the same time. And I sat there going, crap, December, I bill the least amount of clients because for tax purposes, I try to bill everyone at the beginning of the year, and so that the bank account will be empty by the end of the year. And the bank account was empty by the end of the year. And doing math in my head, I'm like, oh boy, I really need to earn more. So how many Kickstarters can I put out next year? So that's where the mindset kind of has changed over the years. It's not necessarily how many more website projects can I put out. It's more about, okay, how can I raise money doing more comic books and more art projects and things like that. There's a book that I was going to hire an artist to do, and I'm like, you know what? I need to just get out there and draw more. I've been trying to draw more. All right, let me just draw this book. That'll save me $2,000. And at the same time, I also now have a book coming out that I've drawn again, which is huge. So I think for me, you have to be desperate, and it doesn't have to be financially desperate. You just, you really have to want to do this stuff. And a lot of times people say they want to, and I get it. Life gets in the way. But at the end of the day, what is it? What was the, you do or do not, there is no try. That's Yoda. Yoda kind of said it, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
they don't give awards for how hard you tried. They give you awards for, what you've actually accomplished.
Well, on that note, Mike, I'm going to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's been a great thing. Declare to dream big. Do what it is you have to do, and have a great night. Thank
Oh,
you,
hang on one. Can I
everybody.
just put my stuff in the chat real quick?
Absolutely. Go put your stuff in the chat. Absolutely. But I
Click
thank
on those. Yeah,
everybody
that's
for
actually,
coming.
those are good links.
Perfect. All right. Have a great evening. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to our presenters. Bye now.